G'day guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a drama mystery from Spain, Spanish language English subs, released in the year 2011, directed by Gerardo Herrero, and this movie is called Frozen Silence. So Frozen Silence takes place in World War II, where Spain are helping the Nazis combat the Russians. So the war is not going so well for Spain and they are losing a lot of numbers, but this is not what is on the mind of an inspector. Now this inspector, he was an inspector before the war, but now he's just a private in the army. So he is called up to do a bit of investigating because there appears to be a serial killer amongst the ranks. So the serial killer is picking off these people, he's leaving these religious themes carved on their chest, and the Spanish army don't know how to combat this, so they hear that the private used to be an inspector, and now his purpose in the war is to solve this case. So he's accompanied by another soldier, and they start to dig around and try and uncover the truth, and the truth has a lot of links to a lot of people within the army, and there could be more victims. So whether or not this inspector can crack the case before the war is over, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Frozen Silence. This movie is a war film. Essentially what it is, it's a war movie. It takes place in the war, but it's a section of the war that you don't hear too much about, when Spain's involvement. Now, to be honest, I wasn't aware that they were in fact helping the Nazis. Now, when it comes to the Nazis, you think of Italy, you think of even Turkey to some extent, and you don't really hear about Spain. So I thought that moment in itself, that it's taking an approach to a war on a different sort of perspective, you know, from the Spanish perspective, and that they were helping the Nazis. And you feel to yourself that, well, this, although they're helping the Nazis, they still have a very strong sympathetic approach, because they are very weak. They're getting absolutely demolished by the freezing conditions. They're getting demolished by the bigger Russian army. So there's a strange sense of sympathetic quality to them, almost a pathetic quality to them. So that's something that I didn't expect from this film, is that you're going to feel sorry for people that are deemed as demonized. Basically, if you're helping the Nazis, you are a demon. So that's basically what the movie does. It does take a different approach. It does show you these Spanish soldiers for being very real people, and it feels that they don't want to be there, but the country's government has forced them to be there. And that is the case with a lot of people in war. They don't necessarily want to be there, but they have to be there. And that's the strong feeling you get in Frozen Silence, and I really like that aspect of it. And not to mention, the fact that it does take a different perspective and a different view on something you haven't seen in the war. It also takes a different approach as far as the film is concerned. So overall, it is set during the World War, but it's not necessarily solely a war film. It is a movie about a serial killer. So it's a serial killer kind of movie. It's a murder mystery film, and it's about the investigation leading up to this person's arrest. So it all has a little bit of David Fincher's Zodiac. It has all kinds of other films thrown into it, and I really like that idea of it, that yes, it is a war film, but it's taking place as a serial killer film underneath it. So it's a very multi-layered film, and I thought the way that it was done, I thought it was very ambitious, and for the most part it kind of works. I thought the acting was fantastic, especially from the lead inspector. You've sensed that the whole, as I said, the whole Spanish contingent, the whole platoon and the regiment, they don't want to be there, but they have to be there. And there are some moments in the film that are very disturbing, because it shows you that they've almost given up on life, and that this whole situation is beyond repair. They can't rectify the situation, but because their government is forcing them to be there, it's basically suicide, and they just don't have any hope for the future. And so it does have a very depressing atmosphere to it as well. So there is a lot to like about Frozen Silence, but unfortunately for me, the cinematography is absolutely outstanding. It captures, the harsh Russian weather, which is ultimately what stopped the Nazis, them trying to get into Russia, way too cold for them. So it's the elements, of nature that are, playing a major contributing factor to the downfall of the Nazis, and in this case the Spanish. So although it's got very nice cinematography, although it's very haunting, I just felt that the murder mystery element to the movie just wasn't that interesting. They're going through, they're interviewing all these types of people, and although it does take a different approach as far as a war film is concerned, it doesn't really take a different approach as far as a murder mystery film is concerned. And the characters weren't that interesting. There were moments that were somewhat intriguing, but they don't really carry the film, and you notice that it is starting to drag. And I thought that there was no elevation in the story. It was all on a very similar line. Now say for example David Fincher, what he does so well is that just when you're starting to get a little bit sick of what's going on, he elevates it to another level, and then he elevates it to another level, and that's why I think he's so good at making these types of movies. But this movie feels like it's just on the same level, and it starts to drag, and you start to think to yourself, I don't really care what's going on. I've lost interest in who the killer was, and by the end of it you feel to yourself that, yeah, I've seen a reasonable film. As far as production is concerned, it's very good. It has that underlying element to it, but unfortunately for a murder mystery, it just wasn't captivating enough. It just didn't grab my attention from start to finish, and that's something I was expecting from a Spanish film, but unfortunately for me, it just felt like it was lacking a little bit as far as momentum is concerned. It just didn't quite have the length that it wants to have, that it needs to have to basically make a very good experience. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that it does run out of legs well before the end, and you start to notice it. But having said that, as I said, there's a lot to like about it. It's a different kind of war film, but underneath it does take a serial killer murder mystery film, and that element of it fails to really impress. But there is other elements to the film that I thought were pretty good, and as a result of that, I'm going to give it 3 stars. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.